his drive already. I don't owe nothing. He got all his songs already. How you think he got so hot? Came out with all them tapes. I did that. I put them hooks together. I made incredible music. All he did was rhyme 16s. Well, you know, I made the hooks. I made the melodies. Yeah. I made the shit, dog. I'm the man. I banged it just enough to get my room so I could ram his shit up, ram it up his ass. Right? My window was there. He tried to grab me. So when he came in the window, I punched him in the face.
It's probably you too. It's your boy Chef Guy. Don't forget that 2 and 11, man. Back with another one. Today I'm about to check out this video of Max B, man, the rise and fall. You know, the beef between him and Jim Jones will lead up to him getting that 75-year sentence. And I think it's on Hood War Chronicles channel. Go check them out, man. But anyway, like, comment, subscribe, man. But anyway, man, let's get to the business.
Max B and Jim Jones were once as tight as family, but the moment Jim decided to toss that bond aside was the day Max transformed from his go-to hitmaker into the living nightmare nobody ever expected.
So Jim Jones, compare the names. Look, maxb, Jim Jones. That don't even add up. That's not on my level, man.
From allegedly snatching his girl to trashing his whip and turning Harlem into a war zone just to get at him, Max B wasn't playing. Let's dive in. Charlie Wingate was born and raised in Harlem, New York, right in the heart of the gritty, legendary uptown struggle. His story starts in the Abraham Lincoln housing projects. Max B came from a life marked by pain and survival. His mother was deep in the grip of crack addiction, in and out of prison, and that left his grandmother to raise him. She became his anchor, but even with her guidance, the streets were always close enough to pull him in. Long before he wrote hooks that had the whole East Coast singing, young Charlie Wingate found his voice in the boys' choir of Harlem. That's where the seeds of that signature Max B sound, the lazy melodic delivery, the sing-song flow, the wavy cadence, were first planted. But the melody couldn't drown out the reality. By the time he was 18, Max B had already gone down the wrong road. In 1997, he was arrested on robbery charges and wound up serving about 8 years in prison. That time behind bars didn't break him, it reshaped him. When he stepped out of prison in 2005, he came out with a new name, a sharper edge, and a swagger that only comes from living what you rap about. That's when the world met Max Bigavelli, a name he forged from the giants, Biggie Smalls, Machiavelli, Tupac, and Jigga, Jay-Z. Max saw himself as the perfect blend, the hypnotic flow, the prophetic pain, the hustler confidence.
So your name is Max B, aka Max Bigavel. We know Bigavel stands for Big Jig and Pac, right? But where did the name...
Big Jig and Machiavelli, baby.
Yeah.
Big Jig and Machiavelli.
When Max got out, Harlem was buzzing. Diplomats were running things. Cameron and Jim Jones had the streets locked. Max linked back up with Cam, and through that bond, he was introduced to Jim Jones.
It's crazy because a lot of people didn't know that. I knew that. I was a die-hard Dipset, Bird Gang fan, Wave God, Silver Surfer fan, you feel me? So I knew all that.
Soon after, he signed with Jim's label, Bird Gang, and started working with legendary Harlem producer Dame Grease. The chemistry was instant. Max B dropped his first mixtape, $1 Million Baby, in 2006, and the streets went crazy. His voice, his flair, his rawness, it was like lightning in a bottle. Bird Gang also had another rising star, Stack Bundles. With Max B and Stack in his camp, Jim Jones was sitting on a gold mine. Max quickly became the secret weapon, laying hooks and verses that made Jim's records sound bigger than ever. Tracks like Baby Girl became staples, and Max's presence elevated everything he touched. But no matter how good the music was, Max could never outrun the streets for long. In September 2006, everything changed. Word got back to Max through his ex-girlfriend Gina Conway about a guy named Alan J. Plowden, a flashy dude running a mortgage and mail fraud scheme, always rolling around with big stacks of cash and high-end whips. Gina told Max all about him, and allegedly, jealousy and hunger got the best of him. According to her, Max made it clear they could hit a lick, and he'd make it worth everyone's while.
Boyfriend Charlie Wingate, aka Max B, a rapper, about the men's money. Then Wingate reaches out to this man, Calvin Leardom.
What happened next is still debated, but the end is clear. Max wasn't there when things went down, but prosecutors said he was the mastermind. Gina Conway, who was also dabbling in dealing and stripping, testified in court that Max sent her and his stepbrother Kelvin Sims Leardam to rob Plowden at a New Jersey Holiday Inn. The plan was supposedly simple: break in when he was out clubbing and take whatever money they could find. But everything about the operation was sloppy. Gina and Sims reportedly spent hours lost, missing exits, wasting time. By the time they finally got to the room, Plowden was back, sleeping next to another woman. Then David Taylor walked in. He wasn't part of the plan. Sims panicked and shot Taylor in the face, execution style. That turned a robbery into a murder.
It all began the morning of September 22nd at the Fort Lee Holiday Inn.
That's crazy.
Police are called there after a man is shot to death. The victim, David Taylor from Florida, was staying in room 227.
Gina Conway was the first domino to fall. Once she was caught, she
Trifling ass bitch. Trifling bitch. I hate thieves, man. I hate people who rob, steal. That's the worst. Now, if you rob, I don't care if you get robbed. You know what I mean? But dope boys, regular people, I don't. You know what I mean? I don't care. I don't believe in that robbing a dope man. You know what I mean? Or robbing a civilian. Get it on your own, man. That's the worst to me. You feel me? It is what it is, man. But she a trifling ass bitch. That's why you can't trust these hoes.
gave up everything to save herself. She gave a 169-page statement and threw Max under the bus, naming him as the one who set the plan in motion. She said he promised her everything: money, loyalty, forever, if she helped. And when the feds came for Max, they came hard. He was arrested and hit with life-altering charges, including felony murder. Bail was set at a massive $2 million. While Max B sat in that cold jail cell, time stopped for him, but not for everyone else. Jim Jones, the very man who had signed Max and held him down musically, was suddenly everywhere. Jim dropped We Fly High, aka Ballin'. The track was huge. Overnight, it became an anthem. It was Jim's biggest hit ever, and Max claimed he wrote it. He said he ghost-wrote that and most of Jim's other big hits. But while Jim was cashing checks and doing interviews, Max was behind bars, fighting for his life and relevancy. After 10 long months, Max's bail was finally reduced to $90,000. That's when Jim stepped in, but not like a friend would. Instead of helping Max out of loyalty, he allegedly dangled bail as leverage. Reports say Jim agreed to help get Max out only if Max signed over his publishing rights and agreed to do 6 albums under him. Desperate and locked away, Max didn't have many options. He signed. Jim got all the publishing behind the wavy sound, and Max got temporary freedom with a future that was now out of his hands. Max B walked out of jail in
I didn't know this part. I didn't know the whole time they was out doing this back in the day. I didn't know he was out on bond this whole time. You know what I mean? I thought he did this crime or whatever, like after him and Jim Jones split up. I didn't know this happened prior. That's crazy. I'm learning something.
July 2007, a changed man, colder, sharper, and carrying more resentment than ever. He was broke, betrayed, and bound by a contract that gave away his future publishing to a man who seemed to benefit most from his downfall: Jim Jones, the man he once called a brother. Max had watched while he sat in a cell as his influence grew across the streets, as mixtapes and street DVDs repeated his name like folklore. And the more people chanted "Wavy," the more it became clear: if Jim Jones wasn't going to help put him on, Max B was done being quiet. He was ready to go to war. He had every reason to feel betrayed. Max wasn't just being politically edged out, he had been financially robbed. Jones owned Max's entire publishing. That meant every hook Max had ever written, every melodic ad-lib, every catchy line, Jim got paid off it.
Got him in his drive already. I don't owe nothing. He got all his songs already. How you think he got so hot? Came out with all them tapes. I did that. I put them hooks together. I made incredible music. All he did was rhyme 16s.
Well, you know,
I made incredible. I made the hooks. I made the melodies. Yeah. I made the shit, dog. I'm the man.
And it wasn't just business. The friendship had soured. The loyalty was broken. Max B was left with a mind for vengeance and a heart frozen by betrayal. So he walked away from Bird Gang with an agenda. If Jim Jones wasn't going to give him what he was due, Max was going to drag him down publicly, and nothing was off the table. It wasn't long before Max found the perfect ally in French Montana. At the time, French wasn't the chart-topping rapper he is today. He was a gritty street figure, known for his Cocaine City DVD series that chronicled life in the Bronx and beyond. French already had his own issues with Jim Jones, stemming from a shooting incident where Jim was rumored to have spread negative word about him. So when Max and French linked up, it wasn't just a partnership, it was a brotherhood born out of mutual war. They named their crew Coke Wave, and it would become one of the most iconic and savage street movements in mixtape history. Max B had already learned the industry wasn't going to save him. He didn't own his publishing. He had no label backing him. What he did have was a voice that the streets respected and a talent for making music. So he did what hustlers do when cornered. He went underground. He started dropping his music for free, letting the people hear what the industry was trying to shelf. But he wasn't just dropping music. He was verbal grenades targeting Jim Jones and everyone in his circle. And Max didn't hold back. The first jab came in the form of a mixtape called Public Domain 3. The cover said it all. Max stood in a graveyard, posing with tombstones that had names like Millie Jim Jones and Vanilli Joel Santana carved into them. He compared them to Milli Vanilli, the infamous duo who lip-synced their way to fame. In Max's eyes, Jim and Jules were trying to ride off the wave he created. He mocked them for it, releasing tracks with titles like Lip Sing, Rapping, I Know Them Dudes Need Me, I Was Giving Them the Loot, but them dudes done blew it. But Max didn't stop at music. He went after reputations, personal lives, the whole foundation of what Jim Jones was building. One of the wildest moments in the beef came when Max dropped the brutally disrespectful track, She Touched It in Miami, where he claimed that Jim Jones's longtime girlfriend Chrissy Lampkin had been with him in extremely intimate ways, rapping that Chrissy sucked it in Miami while Big Evil hit it from the back in her fanny. Max laughed through the bars, painting Jones as a man being clowned by his own inner circle, and the streets ate it up. Jim Jones, for his part, was shell-shocked. He didn't see it coming. He tried to deny the allegations, tried to downplay Max's importance, claiming Max was just another washed-up rapper who never got off the shelf. He said Max didn't write We Fly High, his biggest hit, but the streets weren't buying it. Max's voice was all over the original reference tracks. People started questioning Jim's real role in Dipset's success. Max moved like he meant war, and it wasn't just talk. He claimed that one day, Jim Jones tried to ambush him by blocking his car in a parking lot. Max said he saw it coming, rammed Jim's Bentley out of the way, and even got some punches in before peeling off. It sounded wild, but Max was proudly showing off the dents in his car like trophies.
I banged it just enough to get my room so I could ram this up, ram it up in. Right? My window was there, he tried to grab me. So when he came in the window, I punched him in the face.
French and others vouched for him. The myth grew. Then came November 2008, when Max and French decided to pull up on Jim Jones in person. They rolled deep into Manhattan, walked straight into a building where Jim was recording, and made it clear the streets weren't safe for Jones anymore. Max would later claim that Jim saw the situation unfolding and called the cops, which only added insult to injury. Around that time, their respective crews even clashed at a Brooklyn club, causing a full-on brawl with chairs flying and K9 units showing up. The whole thing felt like a movie, but it wasn't. It was just how deep the beef ran. By the time the smoke cleared, Max B had done more than diss Jim Jones. He had turned him into a punchline. Max became a cult hero, the kind of artist who didn't need a label to validate him. Even while legally bound by contracts that gave him nothing, he found a way to become a legend, flooding the streets with music that people still play to this day. However, as the beef with Jim Jones continued to spread like wildfire across the streets and mixtape circuits, it turned him into a punchline. Max became a cult hero, the kind of artist who didn't need a label to validate him. Even while legally bound by contracts that gave him nothing, he found a way to become a legend, flooding the streets with music that people still play to this day. However, as the beef with Jim Jones continued to spread like wildfire across the streets and mixtape circuits, Max B was simultaneously gearing up for the biggest battle of his life. Max B was preparing to face a criminal trial that could bury his wave in concrete. On June 9th, 2009, Max B walked into the Bergen County Courthouse
Damn,
like a man
been
who
that
believed
long?
in his own story.
Crazy.
He had his people with him, cameras rolling, and the signature confident sway in his
Time
step.
flying
His
like a
legal team
mug.
was talking big too. They claimed they had dismantled the prosecution's main witness during cross-examination. They were referring to Gina Conway, the young woman who'd been at the heart of this entire criminal conspiracy. Gina had turned herself in and testified against Max and his stepbrother, Kelvin Leerdam, in exchange for a lighter sentence. Max's lawyer accused her of being a scorned woman, making up stories to save herself. But courtrooms aren't battlefields you can win with swagger. When the jury finally returned with a verdict, everything Max thought he knew about loyalty, street code, and even redemption came crashing down. Max was found guilty on 9 out of 11 counts, including armed robbery, conspiracy, aggravated assault, and felony murder. The prosecution had successfully painted him as the mastermind behind the whole robbery, even if he wasn't there to pull the trigger. They said he was the one who set up the heist, who encouraged Gina and Kelvin to carry it out so he could sit back and collect the bags. The entire case, really, hinged on Gina Conway. She had struck a deal with the government. Her original charges of murder were reduced to armed robbery and manslaughter in exchange for her cooperation, landing her a recommended 18-year sentence. The defense fought hard, arguing that Gina had cooked up a lot of her story to get her time cut. Ironically, Gina even testified that Max himself knew nothing of a robbery, claiming she used Max B's name to convince her boyfriend Kelvin to go through with the plan. The defense said Gina only implicated Max later out of heartbreak and self-interest, trying to paint him as the puppet master in exchange for leniency. But the jury wasn't buying it. Max B was sentenced on September 3, 2009 to 75 years in prison.
Right around that time, Max B gets found guilty on 9 of 11 counts, including felony murder. And he gets sentenced to, was it 75 years?
Yeah, 75.
Eligible for parole in 2042, Max went from street-buzzing icon to inmate overnight. And while the streets mourned, Jim Jones seemed to be celebrating. From a business standpoint, Jones thought he had pulled off the ultimate checkmate. Max was behind bars, his voice no longer a threat, and Jones still controlled the publishing rights to all of Max's music. All the hooks Max ever wrote, all the melodies he'd laid down, every cent still streamed into Jim's pocket. Jones even mocked Max publicly every chance he got. He called him goofy names, dismissed him as irrelevant, kept repeating the narrative that Max was washed before he ever got started. In interviews, Jones made it seem like he'd moved on, like Max was nothing more than old inventory, something he had once used but would never take down from the shelf again. But it wasn't as airtight as Jones thought. Even from behind bars, Max B wasn't done. The streets had too much love for him. His name carried too much weight. Max was corresponding with French Montana, DJs, independent labels, keeping his presence alive in any way he could. Then in May 2010, a major legal victory shifted the entire power dynamic. A judge ruled that Jim Jones no longer held any control over Max B's music career. The judge found that Max had fulfilled the terms of both of the contracts he'd signed with Jones back in 2005 and 2007. In plain words, Max was free. Free, at least, from the paper chains that tied his art to another man's pockets. Max was still in prison, but that contract was dead. He was finally able to release his long-awaited album, Vigilante Season, in 2011. And if anyone still doubted Max's influence, the streets made it clear. His wavy flow, that melodic gangster bop he'd helped pioneer, became the cheat code for a whole generation of rappers. You couldn't turn on the radio without hearing traces of Max in someone's cadence, in their harmonies, in their talk about waves, vibes, or being free Max B. Then came the unbelievable twist. In 2016, after serving 7 years, Max's new attorneys dropped a legal bombshell. They argued that Max's original lawyer had been incompetent. Instead of putting together the best criminal defense possible, the lawyer was allegedly eyeing a big paycheck, hoping to ride Max's rap career to riches if he beat the case. This strategic legal argument special, called post-conviction relief, actually worked. The judge vacated Max's original 75-year sentence. Max eventually pled guilty to aggravated manslaughter as part of a plea deal. The plea deal slashed 55 years off his sentence, reducing it to 20 years, then to 12 years. And since Max had already served several years by then, his release date was now in sight. He wasn't dying in prison after all. His official release date was set for November 9th, 2025.
Originally, you were sentenced to 75 years, but then last July, you said you got reduced to 20 years and then to 12 years.
And by then, Max B wasn't just a
That's more
rapper,
than
he was a
12
myth,
years,
the
then.
kind of artist whose influence could be felt
2009 to
everywhere, from
15 to
underground
16.
freestyles to Kanye West's star-studded
2025 to
albums.
16.
Kanye himself tried to name his 2016 album Waves, and had to
Yeah, I
publicly
remember that.
acknowledge Max after the Wave community came for his neck. Kanye even featured Max's voice on a song. Drake and Wiz Khalifa openly said they were inspired by him. Even Jim Jones, in a rare truthful moment, admitted that Max B could have been bigger than Drake if he hadn't gone to prison. Now, as 2025 looms, there's a strange question hanging over the whole saga. Are Max and Jim still enemies? Or is it finally done? Max,
I don't know
speaking
about all
from
that,
prison,
them
made
being
it
bigger
clear
than
he
Drake,
was in a
but-
different space. He said he was a new man, a husband,
tripping
a
about
father
that.
of 4. The old rage seemed gone, replaced with perspective. He even hinted at the possibility of finally burying the hatchet. Jim Jones wasn't having it. Though he and French Montana had rekindled their friendship and even made music together in 2023, Jim made it clear that Max was still a different situation. He said he didn't wish Max harm, but he wasn't interested in getting comfortable either.
All right, man. Yeah, I don't get that, man. Like, you know what I mean? You squash the beef with French, but you ain't squash it with Max. I mean, I understand it's deeper. You know what I mean? More was said with Max. You know what I'm saying? The French was just standing by his man. But it's like, if there no bloodshed and nobody die, y'all ain't, you know what I'm saying? Nobody got shot. Get over that shit, man. But can't tell somebody to get over something that really hurt them and bothered them. So, I mean, it is what it is. Hope them brothers can get it together, man, and you know, get to that music again and rekindle whatever you want to call it. No homo. But anyway, man, y'all know my motto, man. It's M's forever, and I'm out.